The sleek, obsidian-colored vehicle sat motionless at the intersection in the heart of Fairhaven. Its engine hummed a low, confident purr, a sound of expensive indifference. Behind the wheel, a man in a tailored charcoal suit waited with an almost unsettling stillness, his hands resting lightly on the leather. His eyes, calm and sharp, didn't just watch the street. They seemed to parse it, reading the city's unspoken rhythms. He was a man with the silence of one who had nothing to prove and the composure of one who had seen everything. But someone was about to challenge that composure. The instant the light turned green, a wail of sirens shattered the quiet. Red and blue lights painted the car's interior. The man didn't react. He simply guided the vehicle to the curb and reached for the window switch. A patrol officer was already there, hand on his holster, jaw tight. His badge identified him as Officer Kane, and his voice was a low growl, thick with suspicion. "Out of the vehicle," he commanded, his eyes narrowing. "You don't belong in this car." The driver blinked slowly. "Officer, I'm sorry. Could you clarify?" Kane gestured at the sports car as if it were a co-conspirator. "This vehicle matches the description of a stolen car. I need you to put your hands on the hood." A crowd began to form, phones raised. It always did when a scene like this unfolded. The driver complied without protest. His hands, smooth and steady, rested on a surface that was worth more than a decade of the officer's salary. What Officer Kane didn't know was that beneath the passenger seat, a sealed leather folder bore a golden emblem, Department of Justice. He didn't know that the man he was about to handcuff was a federal special investigator. He had no idea this was all part of a civil rights investigation, a meticulously planned operation where every moment was being documented, not just by the onlookers, but by the man himself. This wasn't a traffic stop. It was a trap, and Officer Kane had just stepped into it. His body camera, should the footage survive, would soon become Exhibit A in a case about racial bias and abuse of power. His words, "You don't belong in this car," were already on their way to becoming a viral headline. The driver lowered his head slightly as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. "Officer," he said, his voice a low, precise whisper, "you have no idea who you're talking to." The trap was sprung. Desmond Ellis knew better than to resist. The cold steel of the handcuffs was a familiar sensation, a feeling he'd encountered in countless case files, but never personally. Yet, this time was different. This wasn't theoretical exercise. He was a data point, the living proof of a pattern he'd been sent to investigate. Officer Kane's voice was a grating presence as he was led to the patrol car. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "Isn't that the guy from that investment firm?" Desmond kept his eyes forward, his silence a deliberate strategy. His job was to observe, to collect, to be the evidence. At the precinct, he was processed like any other suspect, booked without his name being checked, fingerprinted without cause. His driver's license, tucked away in his wallet, was never requested. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the narrative they'd already scripted. 3 hours passed in the holding cell. Desmond studied the cracks in the peeling gray paint of the walls, but his thoughts were elsewhere. A hidden camera on his lapel was streaming everything back to Washington, D.C., where his team was watching in real time. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the fourth stop this month by the same officer, each time targeting a black man in a luxury car. Zero apologies. Desmond had arrived in Fairhaven under a specific directive from the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. An unusual spike in civilian complaints had flagged this district for an audit. When internal resistance stonewalled the probe, the DOJ turned to its final resort, a covert operation. Desmond wasn't just leading the investigation. He was the investigation. On paper, he was a private investor named Marcus Thorne. In truth, he was a federal special investigator, embedded to confirm a disturbing theory, that this district had fostered a culture of unchecked authority, weaponizing racial profiling as a routine tactic. His arrest wasn't a surprise. It was a calculated, necessary risk designed to expose the department's enforcement behavior. But something had felt off today. Kane hadn't just stopped him. He had escalated quickly and violently, as if he felt immune to consequences. That detail, more than the unlawful arrest, bothered Desmond the most. The officer wasn't acting out of fear. He was acting out of comfort. Meanwhile, 5 blocks away, a journalist named Mayachin refreshed her Twitter feed. The video from the street had exploded. 700K views in under 2 hours. Her screen read. The caption, "He doesn't belong in this car," was now a hashtag. Hashtag driving while black, hashtag body cam footage, hashtag wrongful arrest. Maya was the one who had first tipped off the DOJ. She had spent months compiling a private database of civilian videos, documenting unlawful stops. Now, she watched with a mix of dread and vindication. But something about this man, the way he carried himself, didn't fit the usual pattern. This wasn't just another target. This felt like precision. Back at the station, Desmond finally spoke. Not to plead, but to politely request water. The officer ignored him. The message was clear. You're not welcome and you're not safe. Desmond had already made peace with that. This wasn't about safety, it was about strategy. He reached into his inner pocket and retrieved a pen-like object. It wasn't a pen. A press of the clip sent a signal to a secure DOJ server, marking the end of Phase 1, arrest achieved. Next, full exposure. The signal changed everything, but only for those who knew the rules. Officer Kane did not. He still swaggered to the precinct, unaware that his every step was being archived on a federal server. His swagger was time-stamped, geolocated, and accompanied by high-fidelity audio from Desmond's lapel mic. Inside his cell, Desmond leaned against the cold cinder block wall, his cuffed hands resting on his lap. He wasn't counting minutes. He was counting mistakes. Kane had made 3 already. No legal reason for the stop, no documentation of the arrest, and no attempt to verify Desmond's identity. This was no longer just a wrongful arrest. It was willful negligence. Outside, the video was now on local news channels. The narrative was solidifying. Man arrested for driving while black. Anchor voices carefully danced around legal terms. But the message was clear. It wasn't about the car. It was about the culture. In the mayor's office, a secure phone line blinked red. The voice on the other end was cold, clinical, and from Washington, D.C., Madam Mayor, one of our investigators has been unlawfully detained in your city. We advise full cooperation from this point forward. The dominoes had begun to fall. Back at the precinct, Kane, now with a hint of a smirk, walked into the booking room. He had already checked the glove compartment of the car, found the Doge-issued ID, and slipped it into his pocket. His 4th mistake, concealing federal credentials. He leaned toward the intercom, his voice dripping with misplaced confidence. Guys like you always act calm, like the rules are on your side. But in the real world, we make the rules. Desmond didn't respond. He simply lifted his eyes, precise and unmoved, and let the silence speak for itself. The mic was still hot. Upstairs, a junior officer named Marcus Reyes stared at a screen. He'd heard the rumors about traffic stops that vanished from logs and body cam footage that disappeared. He had joined the force to help people, not to be a part of this. He found a live feed from Kane's patrol unit, keyed in an override code, and saw the entire incident, freezing the frame. He zoomed in and saw the glint of the DOJ badge under the passenger seat. His breath caught. He knew what he had to do. 5 minutes later, an anonymous file was uploaded to a secure civil rights server. The pressure mounted. Kane, still pretending to be in control, began to feel the shift. The sideways glances from colleagues, the sudden silences. The air was no longer on his side. At 7:42 p.m., a verified DOJ account posted a 9-second video compilation. It was time-stamped, unedited, and damning. Kane's voice rang clear. You don't belong in this car. Then came the unlawful commands, the grab, the cuffs. The footage wasn't just from Kane's body cam. It was synced with 3 others, bystanders' dash cam, and Desmond's hidden device. It was a mosaic of misconduct. The internet erupted. The next morning, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the precinct. Inside were members of the DOJ Civil Rights Division, the Office of the Inspector General, and 2 federal prosecutors. They didn't knock. They walked in with sealed subpoenas and data warrants. Kane, still on shift, didn't even have time to delete his texts. His badge was seized. A quiet, professional voice informed him, "You are not under arrest yet, but your badge is now property of the federal government." 2 weeks earlier, Desmond's team had received a tip that Captain Thorne, Kane's superior, was ordering IT purges to erase questionable stops. What Thorne didn't know was that the city's cloud backup system synced automatically every 48 hours. The DOJ logged into the archive and found a gold mine, over 60 deleted recordings, almost all involving people of color. The timestamps and digital audit trails were intact. The city mayor's press conference, meant to restore public trust, became a public relations disaster. A journalist held up a memo from 3 months prior detailing complaints against Kane, signed and time-stamped by the mayor's office. Her scripted answers crumbled, her hesitation speaking volumes. Captain Thorne's attempt to retrieve his personal laptop from the evidence room was caught by motion-triggered cameras the DOJ had installed. Agents confronted him with still frames of his badge frozen midair as he tried to leave. He was now a subject in a federal obstruction investigation. He was no longer the shield. He was the rot. On a quiet Tuesday, Desmond walked into the Capitol. No suit, no media entourage. He carried only a folder filled with transcripts, data, and documented racial disparities in traffic stops by the very department that had arrested him, before the Congressional Civil Rights Subcommittee. He didn't dramatize his arrest. He deconstructed it. What happened to me was not a malfunction of the system, he said. It was the system itself, built that way, maintained that way, rewarded that way. His words. If I belonged in cuffs, the question isn't who I am, it's who they are. Echoed through the chamber, followed by a stunned silence and then a burst of applause. A leaked live stream of Maddox's internal disciplinary hearing went viral. The DOJ played a composite video of Kane's language across 12 stops. One officer on the panel tried to defend the conduct. A black female sergeant snapped back. High-risk stops require intensity. So do high standards. This department has neither. The hearing ended in disgrace. The storm had a voice now, and it sounded like guilt. 3 weeks after the initial stop, the DOJ held a press conference. Desmond approached the podium in a Navy suit. He looked at the sea of flashing lights and said one sentence, "I belong everywhere justice is needed." Then he stepped aside. The DOJ director confirmed multiple indictments against Officer Kane, Captain Thorne, and 2 other officers. Desmond's sentence became a rallying cry, immortalized on murals and T-shirts. The badge hadn't been stripped from him. It had been sharpened. The world thought it was over. But Desmond had never been after vengeance. He wanted transformation. He returned to Washington with a classified memo titled Federal Oversight Recommendations, Fairhaven Pilot Program. It was 78 pages of case law, data, and a radical proposal. Placed the entire Fairhaven precinct under temporary DOJ supervision. The memo included a timeline of Kane's behavior, internal emails from Thorne, and sworn statements from whistleblowers. The goal wasn't retribution. It was reform. His team filed a quiet petition in federal court, not against Kane or Thorne, but against the city itself for negligent supervision. The case, Ellis v. City of Fairhaven, was a structural challenge to how policing was administered in the region. At a closed-door Senate briefing, Desmond revealed that his arrest was the final phase of Operation Mirror Protocol, a years-long covert DOJ initiative. High-ranking investigators had gone undercover across the country to experience firsthand what it was like to be black in America. You cannot legislate empathy, Desmond told them, but you can document injustice until the law has no choice but to follow. He then produced a sealed envelope with a list of 47 similar precincts under quiet investigation. The Fairhaven case, he explained, was the pilot. What you're proposing is an oversight, a senator said. It's a complete redesign. Desmond didn't blink. Exactly. Captain Thorne, facing a network of commanders complicit in suppressing evidence, took a plea deal and lost everything. The court ruled in favor of federal oversight for Fairhaven, making it the first municipality in the country to face such a mandate. And Desmond's story became a core study in university law curricula. He never asked for fame, never sat for a profile piece. He returned to the DOJ, took on a new identity, and began preparing the next case. Justice was not an event. It was a mission. As he left Fairhaven for the last time, he walked past the exact intersection where it all began. The cracked sidewalks, the same flickering neon sign. But the air had shifted. A young black boy ran up to him with a notebook. "Are you the guy from the video?" The boy asked. Desmond smiled, knelt down, and handed him a card. "Ask better questions. Carry a camera. Never let silence be your answer." The boy grinned. Desmond walked away, and the work continued. He stood quietly at the edge of the street, watching life move on. No one recognized him. No one stopped him. The space no longer whispered that he didn't belong. He thought about the arrest, the victory, and the details most people miss. The way Kane looked at him as if ownership, not law, was being challenged. The way the cuffs cut deeper because of the assumption. The moment he realized no badge, no education, no public service could protect him from being misunderstood. But in that same moment, he realized something more powerful. His silence had weight, his calm had power, and his presence had triggered a reckoning. Desmond hadn't just won a case. He had proven that dignity is data, that a quiet refusal conform to disrespect can ripple louder than rage. A woman in her late 40s walked up to him. "Mr. Ellis," she said, holding a grocery bag. "I just want to say thank you. My son's in the academy now, and after what happened to you, he knows how to see people. You taught him that." Desmond smiled gently. "No, ma'am," he said. "You did." He looked up at the clear, open sky. He didn't just belong in that car. He belonged everywhere justice had been delayed, misapplied, or denied. And now, so did his story. Because injustice once filmed can be erased. But dignity once witnessed lives forever.